Hello. It is time for our book study tonight, Rise of the False Gods. Thank you so much for joining me. You'll see I'm in my sweatshirt tonight. It's cold. It's been kind of cold all day. Along with that, I had a very sleepy day. I think the holidays all just caught up with me. Took advantage of a very long midwinter nap. I snuggled down on the couch with my blanket, and boy, I was gone for a long time. But now I'm feeling frightened about our gathering tonight and what we're going to learn. And tonight, we are going to be starting on page 144, and it's called Getting to Cause. Now, if you're new, you can go to YouTube and type in Rise of the False Gods, and you will see Rise of the False Gods, Alicia Leslie, and you'll see a link to all the videos on this. Do feel free to comment, to ask questions on this video, or whenever you watch it, even on YouTube, the questions will show up. Subscribe and you won't miss any. So let's get going with tonight's book study. We are almost halfway down the page on page 144. We are making progress. Okay. So it says, if we want to stop pain and suffering, which are effects, we should identify the change, the cause. So identify and change the cause. So, there's this old story about a guy that went to the doctor, and he said, oh, God, he said, Doc, I keep getting this stabbing pain in my eye. And the doctor said, really? And he kind of looked at him and he said, tell me, do you drink coffee? And the man said, well, yes. Did that have something to do with it? And he said, well, do you put sugar in your coffee? And the man said, yes. And he said, well, from now on, take the spoon out before you drink it. If all of our problems could be solved that easily, yet in a way they can. Well, look who's here. Poor Tish. She came over this afternoon when I was snoozing on the couch, right about 4 o'clock, ready for the hunkered down holiday video. And I think she was really bothered because I wasn't doing it. On the other hand, I did put on, if you have a cat and you have YouTube, you might want to go to YouTube and put on Cat TV. Now, she's not quite that amused by the birds on it, but there's one that has a squirrel on it. And she was actually watching that. Yeah, you were watching that, weren't you? You liked that squirrely on TV. Yes, you did. Okay. All right, so getting back, we want to identify and change the cause, which will then change the effect. Getting to cause is like trying to untangle a ball of yarn the cat had its way with. And if you have a cat, you know what that's like. We have to twist and turn from effect to cause, to previous effect to that cause. It's like a chain effect. You go back and go back. As daunting as this process may seem, as soon as we get it, as soon as we get the, oh, I got it, that aha moment, we're done. We don't have to do that ever again. The problem disappears as if by magic, but it's not magic, it's metaphysics. This is called by some repentance, and this is what repentance means. To see and comprehend error so we can stop the pain and suffering excuse me, of our carnal nature, and not repeat the error. Once we achieve this, our next step is to share what we have learned with others. Learn, live, and share the teaching. Here's an example of how it worked in my life. I know if you've been with me for a while, my dear friends, you probably heard this one before, but it's always worth repeating a good story. For years, my former husband and I would play the card game Pinochle with another couple. And I never much liked the game because I didn't get the bidding process. And no one was really trying to teach me. I was more blamed for not knowing it. You know, my ex-husband would say, 3 against 1, playing 3 against 1 again. That didn't make me feel too good, and it's not a very good learning environment. Well, one day, by whatever strange thing, bingo, I got it. I suddenly understood the bidding process. And you know what? We never played Pinochle again. And I don't miss it. I didn't like it to begin with. We have to always look to cause, not fault. Keep thinking about that. Cause, not fault. If we're finding fault, we're blaming. It's not about blame. It's about cause. Okay. Likewise, whatever it is in our lives, when we comprehend the principle, the hamster wheel of useless, unnecessary suffering stops, and we can jump off. As stated in the previous chapter, it's all in our mind. Knowledge and understanding have great power. When we experience that flash of realization, we have learned the lesson. We don't have to keep going around and around and saying, why is this happening to me again? I had a bad habit many years ago. I do not do this anymore, but many years ago, I would let the gas tank run down to the point it was so low, I'd be afraid I wouldn't make it to the gas station. But I don't let that happen, because then you run out of gas, you say, why is this happening to me again? Because you let the gas tank run down again. I just don't get it. All right. Failure to learn our lesson will bring more lessons in an escalated form. And here we go back to the cosmic 2x4. It keeps getting bigger and harder because we're not getting the lesson. So the bigger and harder point is really trying to get to wake up. Okay. We're experiencing massive effects of something first spotted back in the 1970s. I was a homemaker and mother back then. This was the norm. Most of my friends were married. My parents' marriage, I guess I would say it's still going on. The earth life of my parents' marriage was almost 63 years. But I'm sure they are happily together to this day. You could see their love. I don't doubt that they're together this day. My grandparents, aunts, and uncles, with one exception, had successful marriages as well. Divorce was rare. The great majority of families were intact. Now, don't misunderstand me. I do not have rose-colored glasses on that say there were no bad or uncomfortable marriages. There were, for sure. But it was not the norm, and that is because of a basic shift that we have experienced, in my never to be humble opinion, away from the meaning and understanding and the foundation of a lifestyle in a family environment to where we've come to now. We did not see really a whole lot of, divorces for sure. And in those days when vows were taken, it was accepted that this was it for the rest of your life. Today, people can say, well, if it doesn't work out, I'll get a divorce. In those days, you were not allowed to get a divorce by law. Weren't allowed. Okay. Also, our religion, our religious beliefs were much more grounded in keeping a marriage together. When we said, till death do we part, we meant till death do we part. Now, in my particular case, when death became the preferred objective, and mine, his, anybody's, just get me out of here, you're in trouble. So on one hand, we have to work as hard as we can toward creating a good, solid foundation of marriage when we enter into a relationship. We have to work on it. Marriage is not some kind of romantic, roses and rainbows and unicorns. Marriage is work. It's hard work, and it's worth every bit of the work. But in order to have a marriage work, the focus has to come off of self and switch to the whole, to the family, to the community. I have found that that's one of the things I believe could change our experience here with a skyrocketing divorce rate. You don't count all the unofficial marriages, the shacking up, as we called it in those days. Shacking up was also very rare. That became popular in about the 70s, I'd say, right about then. Dr. Laura, who a lot of people don't like, but I like her, she would, someone would call herself her help, line, and they would say, well, my fiance and I moved in together, or my boyfriend and I moved in together, whatever, and blah, blah. And she'd say, oh, okay, so you're shacking up. People didn't like the word shacking up because it inferred a relationship without a commitment. Duh! It has become, of course, commonplace. But then when she would say, well, he's my fiance, we're going to get married. And Dr. Laura would very often say, do you have a ring and a date? And if she said no, they said, he's not your fiance. You're not engaged. You're not engaged till you get a ring and a date. Yes, Dr. Laura did hate that. But you know what? I kind of don't like it myself, not because I'm judging anyone, but because there's no solidity, there's no foundation, there's no commitment. We are very much shy on commitment in these days, and commitment is very, very important. Okay. Marriage and vows. When marriage and vows are taken seriously and family put before self, everyone benefits. I was divorced twice. I know this to be true through personal experience. And yes, if you have done everything in your power to make your marriage work and it's not working, by all means, save yourself, save your family. But it does change who you are. It changes who your kids are. So you want to make sure there is good cause. Now, when I first got married, there was only one way to a divorce, and that was adultery. There was no such a thing as irreconcilable differences. So think on that. All right. Now I must share a disclaimer. I want to see a comment here. Cheryl says, I've had a few families wait to get married, had children, and then got married and then divorced. And that is true. My ex-husband's cousin, in fact, shacked up with her her boyfriend, which was actually, it was his cousin, and this was a girlfriend. Anyway, they shacked up for 7 years. They got married. The marriage lasted 1 week, and they got divorced. It just, I think that it's important to make a vow, and that a vow, like, it's not like Barbossa said on Pirates of the Caribbean, well, it's kind of a set of guidelines. No, a vow is a vow. You say a vow because you mean it. All right, disclaimer, this means it's time to buckle your seatbelt. I may be ticking you off. As you read the following, you may find it offensive. That's okay. Read it. Consider the possibility there are valid points made. And if you don't agree, let it go. Keep putting it in the perspective of principle before personality. This isn't personal. It's principle. And if I can't share with you what I have learned to be valid and true in my 75 years, that would be a darn shame. I am willing to put myself on the line that you may not suffer. Why do we have to have personal experience if we can learn from other people's experience? And we have a very rich, very, very rich environment to learn from with our current divorce rate. Now it's more like you're going to get divorced at least once, maybe twice, but that's not the way it has to be. All right, here we go. You got your seatbelt buckled? All right. A huge cultural shift began in the 1970s. Women moved from homemaking to jobs or careers. The original intent was a more comfortable lifestyle. Now, I worked part-time, and at that time, the unspoken rule was when your youngest child goes to what did they call it, preschool, then, go ahead and get a job during those hours, or get a job, after your husband gets home or whatever. But the main focus was that you wouldn't have to have your kids in daycare. So, and we had that darn Angelique commercial. I can bring home bacon, fry it up in the pan, and make my guy so glad he's a man, 'cause I'm a woman. The woman's gotta be going to work. The man paid her pick up the slack. That's all I can say. Okay, back to the shift. From the days of the early 70s, when a part-time job may or may not be necessary. I want to tell you something. We must honor and respect the job of homemaker. That is an incredible, an amazing, and important job. Boy, if we could have more people doing this incredible job of raising children and creating a home. I am sorry, but some people, it's good. And it was good for me. I grew a garden. I canned my own foods. My house was cluttered and probably had dust because I was a homemaker, not a housekeeper. Remember that. Okay. Within 20 years, women working outside of the home went from being an option to being a perceived requirement. I say perceived because what happened is the more money we made, the more money we spent, the more the materialism, the god of mammon and position, ego, the false god that is Baal. Remember, these are states of consciousness. We began to think we wanted more, we wanted to be more, we wanted to have more, weren't happy with what we had. Are you hearing me? You are richest when you are content with what you have. It doesn't mean you wouldn't like more, may someday have more, but you want to be content with what you have first. And I'm going to tell you something. If anyone's watching this and you're pondering having kids, or you're not yet married, you're thinking about getting married, whether or not you wish to be a homemaker, if that's a possibility and that's what you want, please consider it. There's nothing like being there for that first tooth, first bump, first step, for the love and the cuddles, for the pure joy of making a wonderful meal and creating a beautiful home. And when I say beautiful home, I mean beautiful by love, not by stuff. Stuff is okay, but stuff is not what life is about. Love and time are the stuff that life is made of. Don't forget that. That's precious, precious information. Oh, got time. I'm afraid I'm going to run out of time. I think I may finish this chapter tonight. Okay. Who knows? Okay, so, and in the time between then and now, the both people working is declared by us to be a necessity. It's no longer okay to send a kid to community college. They've got to go to a, highfalutin college. They have to have designer clothes. No more shopping at the lower places, We have to do better than that. I will tell you something. Someone with a modest income, excuse me, that is able to be a full-time homemaker, they have their own form of riches. Oh my gosh, one of those riches is the coffee clutch. Our girlfriends would come over and bring their kids, and we'd have coffee and solve the world's problems, or we'd take the kids up to the town beach and sit in our little beach chairs and watch the kids play, and so many wonderful things we had in our beautiful, very simple life. Living simple is simply wonderful. Now, I will admit, excuse me, it says here, most people could have a, excuse me, most people could have a single income home if they were willing to release some of the luxuries that we have come to see as essential. On the other hand, I do acknowledge and admit that for some it is not an option. And one of the reasons it's not an option for many people is there are single parents and they have to take care of their family. And that is a sin of its own, because sin is useless, unnecessary suffering. And when two people create a child and one of them ditches that financial responsibility and the personal responsibility, useless, unnecessary suffering. As time went on, for most people, the gap between income and living expense got wider and wider. It was that old song, the rich get rich and the poor get poorer. And that's the way it happens. And that's where we are right now. The 1% literally is running us politically, financially, and they have what we are denied. We are denied in a lot of times in our basic needs, while there is an imbalance in luxury. A lot of people also have a hunger for that luxury. They feel they're not enough. If they don't have a lot of stuff and a lot of prestige and designer labels and all that hockey puck, that they have no worth. Your worth is not in what you have. It's who you are and how you choose to live and bless others. I had a very funny thing happen. If you watch my videos, you remember right when they said that the stimulus checks would be not stimulus. I really don't want that word. The helping checks, the help me rescue checks were coming out, and I made a suggestion. If you're not in a state of needing rescue, share that. Share that. Well, I was communicating with someone on Facebook the other day, and we were in a conversation about the help checks that were coming out. And I said, "Oh, you got to see this." And I posted my video. She took it off. She took it down. Oh, well. Okay. All right. Now it's really getting rough. So tighten your seatbelt. At the same time that this gap developed between income and living expense, the sexual revolution emerged, and infidelity spread like wildfire. I know this to be true. I was there. And because it was so widespread and so new, I saw suffering. We never expected that. We expected when the vows were made, there would be fidelity. And it's gotten worse and worse. And speaking of fidelity, I am not a prude, okay? But we've also got the issue that has increased greatly of promiscuity. I'm not getting personal. This is principle, not personal. We talk about the spread of STDs. STDs spread through promiscuous behavior. Innocent people are hurt. People that don't know they're being cheated on. People that don't know. But as long as we have a, what do they call it? Fast and loose kind of more animalistic sexual behavior, that's an effect. STDs are an effect. Single parent families are an effect. Not always. Sometimes someone is widowed or a widower. And very often, if you did all your homework right, you were able to provide your surviving family with income. So there still could be someone keeping the home fires burning. All right. The divorce rate soared and families fell apart. Broken families and then blended families followed, and traditions, which are a part of our culture and religious spiritual foundations, got lost in the shuffle. If you look at, the 4 quadrants, I've talked about them before, the 4 quadrants of consciousness, the upper 2 being intuitive sensing, and the lower being the carnal level, being human thought, that's usually a survival instinct, and human emotion. So we've got sensing and emotion. They're the same, but they're different. And we've got intuition and thinking, which are the same but different. One is generated in the lower consciousness and the other the higher. Now, what if you've heard of people talk about 7th heaven? So what if there were these 7 levels of consciousness to absolute oneness with God? And then you've got your 7 levels that go downward to the basis, primordial ooze level of awareness, from absolutely nothing to self-awareness, okay? So as we drop down lower, we are more into our animal nature, which is less disciplined. And, oh God, you're probably hating me now, but bear with me, my friends. Don't be hating. Okay. Financial burdens of split families now paying for 2 households brought a wave of hardship. This added second jobs and latchkey children. I remember coming home from school and smelling the food my mom was making for supper, and it was so great. And it's sad to think of a child coming home to an empty home and being all alone or being with other kids they might get into trouble with, and having to wait for dinner, and it's just really painfully sad to me. Okay. Not surprisingly, psychiatrists and psychologists' business were booming. What happened? Mammon and Baal, the false gods, the false sense of good, became materialism, having stuff, more stuff, better stuff, so much stuff I gotta get a freaking storage shed to put my stuff in, right? And then the carnality, everything of the sensual nature, attending to our own personal senses and not to the good of the whole. It seeped into our lives and infused them with lies and false beliefs, including a me-first attitude. I was watching some videos on YouTube I kind of fell into by accident. And it was all about Karens. And if you're not familiar with that term, Karens is a term that is used. It's a newly emerging, unfortunate, started out as an oddity, but it's spreading like COVID. And it is people with great entitlement issues. And they have videos catching Karens they just call it Karen. God bless anybody whose name is Karen. I'm sorry for you. But a Karen is an entitled woman, and a Darren is an entitled man. And a gremlin should be an entitled child. But what happened is, with all this, our quality, our values, just kind of fell apart and left in their place a deep sadness, even for something we couldn't put our finger on exactly what it was. I know I got to hurry because I'm seeing we're over time. Our wholeness, our holiness became fragmented. The structure of the intact nuclear family became rarer and rarer. Some home fires are no longer being tended. Full-time homemakers are rare, and we all lost out in the process. Was the past perfect? Oh, heck no, absolutely not. Was life better than it is today? I believe in countless ways it was. But I'm not saying I want to go back to those times. I want to throw out the bathwater and save the baby, save the good times, save the things that we were doing right. While we've made great strides, we have technology, people can live longer and healthier lives. We have countless opportunities for creative expression and a potential for a better world for all. That potential is being compromised by false gods. I'm not suggesting we return to the past, but mine the past for the treasure we left behind when we became mesmerized by self. Whew. Well, that pretty much winds this up. I left something out and I wanted to share it and I forgot. It'll probably come back the minute I click the end video button. But I hope you're able to ride through this okay. I am sharing you what I believe in with you, what I believe in my heart and soul to be true. It's not easy. If you think it's easy for me, you are mistaken. This is very difficult, but it's worth it to hopefully think we can bring ourselves to a better place in life. Tomorrow, we are doing Autopsy on the Election. This book was It's about the 2016 election. And as we get it, I think we're going to see how much things have devolved since then. And where are we now? We are at a crossroads. Join me at the crossroads tomorrow. Thank you for being with me. Have a wonderful evening, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.